Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel, where untold stories finally get heard. There was a voicemail on my landline when I got home. A landline. Who even leaves messages on those anymore? Hi, it's me. I know this is unexpected, but if you're willing, I'd really like to talk. She didn't say her name. She didn't have to. I played it 5 times before sitting down. The chair creaked beneath me like it too didn't want to hear from her again. 15 years. Not a single word. Then out of nowhere, Dana drops her voice into my hallway like it belongs there. Like she didn't set fire to everything and walk away without looking back. I didn't delete the message. Not because I wanted to hear it again. I just didn't trust myself not to forget it happened. Let's rewind. Not to when I met her or when I married her. None of that matters anymore. Let's go back to one moment. A Tuesday. Gray sky. My coffee tasted like cardboard. She walked in wearing a yellow raincoat and said, "We need to talk." That was the last normal thing I remember. She didn't cry. She didn't flinch. She just informed me that she was leaving. No argument. No therapy. No explanation. She said she had found a connection that shook her awake, and she didn't want to sleepwalk through life anymore. I asked her who. She said his name like it was a secret she loved keeping. Grayson. Said it like a sigh. Said it like she had whispered it 1,000 times into hotel pillows I never laid on. Then she packed 3 bags, left her keys on the counter, and drove off in the car I'd paid off a month earlier. Grayson. Married man. Older. Richer. I found out later he had kids. A wife. An entire life he kept on one side of town while building a fantasy with my wife on the other. Dana told me I was too safe. Too soft. She wanted to feel alive. Funny thing is, I died a little that day, and she never looked back to see the damage. I lost my appetite for years. I lost friendships. People didn't know what to say. I started talking to myself in grocery store aisles just to hear a voice that didn't lie to me. Now she's calling? I looked up her number. It's still registered under a name she used to use for hotel bookings. Lena Grace. The audacity. You don't come back after 15 years of silence unless something's gone wrong. People like Dana don't apologize unless they're sinking. So now I'm left with a question. Do I call her back? Or do I let her drown in the silence she created? I didn't call her back. Not right away. I did what any pathetic, half-healed version of myself would do. I paced the living room like I was still waiting for her to come home after one of those client meetings she used to lie about. I even checked the window, like maybe she'd be parked outside, leaning against her car like it was still 2010 and everything hadn't already fallen apart. Instead, I sat down and opened the old file I promised myself I'd never touch again. I called it closure, but it was anything but. Just a folder with screenshots, old receipts, an email from his wife, yes, Grayson's wife, and the letter Dana left taped to the fridge when she left me. She didn't even sign it with love. Just her name, like a resignation note. Lowell, I need something different. Don't hate me. Dana. That was it. She didn't even say goodbye. That letter used to make me cry. Now it just made me cold. Back then, I was too weak to do anything about it. I didn't expose her. I didn't go after Grayson. I didn't even tell our friends why she left. I told people we grew apart. I protected her reputation while she destroyed mine. She got to be the brave woman who followed her heart, while I was the sad guy everyone pitted at barbecues. One of our mutual friends even told me, at least she was honest. Honest? She was sleeping with a married man behind my back for months. If that's honesty, then maybe I've misunderstood the entire concept. Still, 15 years changes a man. Or at least I thought it had. I built routines, stacked them high enough to keep the loneliness at bay. I took night shifts so I didn't have to lie awake wondering where she was. I moved to a smaller town. I adopted a dog. I never remarried. And yet, here I was again. Cracked open by 6 words. I'd really like to talk. I finally called her 2 nights later. My hands were sweating. I half hoped she wouldn't answer. But she did. Her voice hadn't changed. Still warm, still deliberate. Still capable of making me feel like I was 17 and invisible all over again. Lowell, she said. Like she had every right to say my name. I shouldn't be calling. she added. But I had to. Had to what? She didn't start with an apology. Of course not. Dana never did things the way normal people do. She asked me how I was. I told her I was alive. She laughed, softly, like that answer hurt. Then came the part one didn't expect. I was wrong, she said. I thought I was chasing something real. But everything I left for, it fell apart. And I've been carrying this for so long. I didn't speak. I just listened. She told me Grayson never left his wife. That after 2 years of secret hotel rooms and whispered promises, he ghosted her. Just vanished. That she spent a year drinking too much, couch surfing, eventually moving back in with her mother. She said she thought about calling me 100 times, but she was too ashamed. And now, she wasn't calling to fix anything. She just wanted to be heard. I just needed to know, she whispered. If you ever hated me, I wanted to scream. I wanted to laugh. I wanted to throw the phone into the wall and walk away. But what I actually said was worse. No, I told her. You don't get to ask that. And I hung up. I wish I could say I felt powerful hanging up on her. That I stood up, dusted off my dignity, and walked away from that conversation like a man finally free. But that would be a lie. The truth? My hands trembled. My chest felt hollow. And for the next 3 nights, I couldn't sleep for more than 30 minutes without dreaming I was back in that old apartment. The one we shared before she detonated everything. In one dream, I walked into the kitchen and saw her sitting at the table, just like she used to on Sunday mornings, drinking tea and sketching ideas for her clients. In another, she was crying and I was holding her. And in the worst one, she was back with him, laughing while I stood in the doorway like I didn't exist. So yeah, no victory lap, just more weight. The next morning, she texted me. I had forgotten she still had my number. I guess I never changed it because I didn't want to erase everything, just in case someday she wanted to say sorry. I used to fantasize about that. That maybe one day I'd get a text that said, I ruined everything, and I was wrong. Instead, all I got was, please don't hang up next time. I need to tell you something. I stared at that message for hours. I even started typing replies. Some angry, some sarcastic. One just said, too late. But I didn't send any of them. The worst part about being left behind is that you get stuck in all the places they forgot to clean up. All the unanswered questions, the versions of yourself you buried to protect their memory. The lies you forced yourself to accept so you could function at work, at birthdays, in life. And now she wanted to unbury it all? That night I called her again. Not because I wanted to forgive her. Not because I missed her. But because I couldn't keep pretending it didn't still affect me. She picked up immediately, like she'd been waiting, phone in hand. I'm glad you called, she said. Don't thank me, I replied. You said you needed to tell me something. So talk. She was quiet for a long time. Then she finally said it. It wasn't just Grayson. For a second, I didn't understand. I thought she meant it metaphorically, like, it wasn't just about him. Or, there were other problems. But no, she meant what she said. There were others, she confessed. Not many, but before Grayson, during us. I couldn't speak. I felt like my tongue had turned to ash. I could hear her breathing on the other end of the line, waiting for me to scream or hang up again. But I just sat there, stunned into silence, while she unspooled the truth I never asked for. I cheated on you first with a client's husband, she admitted. You remember that guy who came to our holiday party? Luke, the one who complimented the lighting in our kitchen? Started with him. It ended quickly, but it opened something in me. And after that, I looked at you differently, like I had already crossed a line I couldn't uncross. She was crying now. I wasn't. I was frozen. A part of me had always suspected. The late nights, the subtle shifts. But hearing her say it so plainly, like it was just part of her story, made everything I'd rebuilt feel paper thin. Why are you telling me this? I finally asked. Because, she said, I saw your name on a fundraiser last month. You donated to a children's hospital in my mother's name. You didn't know, but I saw it. And I realized, you're still the man I didn't deserve. And I needed you to know the truth. All of it. Before I disappear again. The worst kind of pain is the kind that arrives after you've already healed. When the scar's been there for years, and someone comes along and rips it open just to show you there's still blood underneath. That's what her confession did. I thought I had processed everything. Grayson, the affair, her leaving, the silence. But I never planned for more. I never braced myself for others. I remember Luke. Of course I do. He shook my hand like a man who didn't mind sleeping with someone else's wife. Said something weird that night too. He told Dana she cleaned up nice. I thought it was harmless. I thought a lot of things were harmless back then. My naivety wasn't just sad, it was humiliating. I told her to stop. Not because I didn't want to hear it, but because I already knew the pattern. She'd drip-feed me the truth in small doses, each one designed to soften the weight of the last. This was never about healing. It was about unburdening herself. I didn't call you so you could feel worse, she said softly. I called because I don't know who else would care if I died tomorrow. There it was. The real reason. She wasn't sorry. She was lonely. She started crying again, not the kind of cry that demands comfort, but the kind that turns you into a mirror. I sat there, quiet, thinking of all the nights I begged for an explanation she never gave. All the times I reached for her and she turned away. And now, she wanted me to carry her grief? So I asked the one question I had never dared to before. Why did you stay with me at all, Dana? Why go through the motions for 11 years if your heart was already walking out the door? Her answer was cruel in its honesty. Because I thought you'd never leave me. You were the safest place I'd ever known. You didn't challenge me. You adored me. And after everything I'd done, I needed to feel like I still mattered to someone. That hit me harder than any of the affairs. I wasn't her partner. I was her emotional backup generator. The soft landing for when the thrill wore off and the consequences came calling. I was never chosen. I was just available. After that, I didn't say much. I told her I needed to go. She asked if we could talk again sometime. I didn't answer. I ended the call and stared at the blank wall in my living room for almost an hour. Then, for reasons I still can't explain, I opened my closet and pulled out a box I hadn't touched since 2011. Inside were our wedding photos, the champagne cork we saved from our honeymoon, a wrinkled note she once wrote that said, "Forever promise?" I burned it all, quietly, alone, in the sink. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just let it all turn to ash. But that wasn't the end. Not even close. 3 days later, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Just my name written in handwriting I hadn't seen in over a decade. Inside was a single page. Handwritten. Not typed. It read, "You should know. I have a daughter. She's not Grayson's. She's not Luke's either. She's yours. I found out just before I left. I didn't tell you because I didn't want to tie you to my mess. But she wants to meet you now. Her name is Mira." My world tilted sideways. I must have read that letter 20 times. She's yours. Her name is Mira. At first, I thought it was some twisted manipulation tactic, some last-ditch emotional grenade Dana had thrown to keep herself from sinking. But the more I read, the more I realized it wasn't desperate. It was quiet, almost scared, like she wasn't trying to convince me. She was bracing herself for rejection, for silence. I didn't sleep that night. I walked around my apartment with that letter crumpled in my fist, muttering her name, Mira, like if I said it enough times, she'd appear, 15 years old and full of answers I didn't ask for. I kept doing the math in my head. When Dana left, she wasn't visibly pregnant. She didn't say a word about it. Nothing in her letter, her calls, or her voicemail even hinted at this possibility. And yet, 15 years. That timeline? It added up. Painfully, perfectly. The next morning, I did what I hadn't done in over a decade. I searched her online. New last name. New city. No public social media. But I found a local newspaper article from last year, some high school art competition. There was a picture of a girl named Mira Lane, holding a framed painting of a winter street. Her eyes were green like mine, Her awkward smile? I'd seen it in the mirror for most of my life. That was all the confirmation I needed. I sat in front of that image for hours, paralyzed by this impossible storm of emotions. I was furious, grieving, terrified, but the deepest feeling was shame. I had missed everything. First steps, first words, first day of school. I missed all of it because Dana decided I wasn't worthy of the truth. I texted her. One word, why? She replied within minutes. Because I didn't trust myself. And I didn't trust you'd want her. Want her? She was my daughter. I called her immediately. No pleasantries this time. I cut straight through the years of bitterness. Why now, Dana? Why tell me now? Is she sick? Are you dying? What's the real reason? She sounded tired. More than that, fragile. She asked. She said. She's been asking for years. I kept saying it didn't matter, that you wouldn't want to be involved, that you had your own life. But I saw her one night looking through old photo albums, and she found the one of us at the lake. The only one I didn't destroy. And she said, "Is that him?" Couldn't lie anymore. There was silence between us for nearly a minute. It wasn't the angry kind. It was the kind where both people know the damage is already done and there's no fixing it. Just acknowledgement. I asked the question that had been echoing since the moment I opened that envelope. Does she know? She knows you're her father. She knows I lied to you. She doesn't hate you, Lowell. She's just curious. She wants to meet you. She wants to know where she came from. I don't know what I expected, but what she said next shattered me in a way nothing else had. She paints snow because she says it feels honest. Cold but clear. She gets that from you. I never told her, but I see it. That sentence undid me. For years, I thought Dana had taken everything from me. My dignity, my trust, my future. But it turns out, she took something much deeper, the chance to be someone's father. And now, that someone wanted to find me. I told Dana to send me a number. I didn't want her as the middleman. I didn't want more filtered truths. I wanted to speak to Mira. Directly. Honestly. She agreed. Said she'd talk to Mira first and then send me her contact. But I wasn't prepared for what happened next. A week later, I received another message. Not from Dana. From Mira. Hi Lowell. I hope it's okay, I texted. I have a question. Why didn't you ever try to find me? Her message hit harder than anything Dana ever said. Why didn't you ever try to find me? There it was. The question that sliced right through the walls I'd built over the years. I sat at my kitchen table, phone in hand, staring at those words until the screen dimmed and went dark. I didn't even know how to start typing a response. What could I possibly say that didn't sound like an excuse? Because your mother didn't tell me? Because I didn't know you existed? Because I spent 15 years convincing myself that every door was closed, so I never thought to knock. Eventually, I typed, Mira, I didn't know. I just found out about you. Seconds later, she responded, I figured. Mom always made it sound like you wouldn't care. I felt that in my spine. I don't know what stung more, her belief that I wouldn't care, or the fact that her mother had painted me that way for her entire life. I wanted to yell, to curse Dana's name, to pour all 15 years of rage into a single message. But this wasn't about Dana anymore. This was about a 15-year-old girl who was asking a stranger why he didn't come looking for her. I asked if she wanted to talk. Not over text. Her reply came almost instantly. Yes. We set up a video call that evening. I cleaned my apartment 3 times. Not because it was messy, but because I didn't want her to see the kind of life I had settled into, quiet, colorless, isolated. I changed shirts twice, practiced smiling in the mirror. I looked ridiculous. I didn't care. When the call finally connected, my heart nearly stopped. She looked just like my sister at that age. Same hair, same eyebrows, same skeptical eyes. But she had Dana's lips. That soft, half-closed smile that used to disarm me before I ever knew how dangerous it was. Hi, she said. Hi, I replied. And then for a few painful seconds we just looked at each other. You're taller than I imagined, she said with a nervous laugh. I smiled. You're quieter than I expected. I get that from you, apparently. It was awkward, but not painful. In fact, it felt familiar. We talked for 40 minutes. She asked about my job, my favorite movie, whether I like dogs or cats. Felt like a weird first date with my own daughter. But then the questions got deeper. Did you love her? She asked. I hesitated. Yes, I said. Once. Very much. And do you hate her now? I didn't lie. Some days. Other days I just feel sorry. She nodded like she understood. And then she told me something that caught me completely off guard. She's sick, Mira said. Mom, she has early-stage lymphoma. That's why she called you. She didn't want to die with everything still a secret. I felt the air leave the room. I didn't know what to feel. Part of me wanted to yell, of course, that there had to be a reason she was suddenly interested in making peace. But the other part, the one that still remembered how she looked in candlelight, how she laughed during thunderstorms, how she used to trace circles on my arm when she couldn't sleep. That part hurt, and I hated it. Why didn't she tell me that herself? I asked. She didn't want pity. She said she owed you the truth, not her illness. I didn't know whether to respect that or resent it. Mira looked down. I don't know what I want from you, she said. But I know I don't want to lose the chance to know who I came from. You don't have to be my dad. You can just be here, if you want to be. She wasn't crying. She wasn't begging. She was just offering something I never thought I'd be offered. A second chance. And for the first time in 15 years, I didn't feel angry. I didn't feel betrayed. I felt terrified and hopeful. I said yes. Not out loud, not immediately, but in the hours that followed our call. As I sat alone in my quiet apartment replaying every word Mira said, I felt something begin to shift inside me. Not a dramatic realization, not forgiveness or clarity, just a quiet decision. I didn't want to be a ghost to her anymore. I had already missed enough. So I texted her the next morning, "Would you like to meet in person?" Her reply came faster than I expected. Yes, I would. She suggested a cafe 2 hours outside the city, neutral territory. Somewhere neither of us had history. I agreed, then spent the next 3 days wondering what kind of man she'd see when I walked in. I was nothing like the version Dana probably described over the years. I wasn't angry or cruel or absent. I was just tired. A man who lost the thread of his own life and had never quite picked it back up. The day of the meeting, I arrived 15 minutes early and sat in the farthest corner of the cafe, facing the door. Every time someone walked in, my heart jumped. When she finally arrived, I almost didn't recognize her. She looked older than 15. Not physically, just in the way she moved, like someone who had grown up navigating silence. We locked eyes, and there was this odd moment where neither of us smiled. It wasn't uncomfortable, it was real. "Hi," she said, sitting down across from me. "Hi," I replied. She didn't waste time. "So what now?" That question gutted me, because I didn't know. I wanted to say I'd be whatever she needed. A father, a friend, a presence. But those are just words. And words meant very little after the life she'd been dealt. So I gave her the only thing I could, truth. "I don't know," I said. "But I'm here, and I'm not walking away again." She nodded slowly. Then, after a pause, she reached into her bag and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a sketch, black and white, charcoal on thick paper. A winter road, framed by trees bending under the weight of snow. A single man walking alone down the path. "I made this last year," she said, "before I knew who you were. But I think maybe I was trying to find you even then." I stared at it, and something inside me cracked open. She had drawn me without knowing it. She had captured the exact ache I'd carried all these years. I didn't speak, couldn't. I just nodded and wiped my eyes with the back of my hand. "You don't have to make up for lost time," she said. "We can just start from here." That line hit harder than anything else. I'd spent so many years drowning in regret over what was taken from me that I never believed there could be anything left to salvage. But now, here she was, giving me a choice I thought I'd never have again. We sat there for nearly 2 hours. She told me about her school, her art, how she'd always felt a little different, like something was missing. And when she found out I existed, she didn't feel betrayed. She felt whole. Before we left, she looked me in the eye and said, "She's sorry, you know, Mom. She might never say it the right way, but she is. She talks about you more than she admits." I didn't answer, not because I didn't believe her, but because I wasn't ready to carry Dana's guilt on top of my own. I had enough of that already. On the drive home, I kept the sketch on the passenger seat. Every few minutes, I looked over at it like it might disappear, like this whole thing might still be a dream. That night, I received one more message from Dana. It was simple. "Thank you for meeting her. And if you're willing, I'd like to see you too. Just once. Before everything ends." She attached an address. A small house in the mountains. No pressure. No drama. Just an invitation. I stared at it for a long time, heart pounding. After everything she'd done. After every lie, every betrayal. Could I face her again? Could I walk into that house and look the woman who shattered me in the eye? I didn't know the answer yet. But for the first time in 15 years, I wasn't afraid to find out. Took me 4 days to drive to the address Dana sent. I told Mira I was going. She didn't try to convince me or talk me out of it. She just said, "Whatever happens, I'm glad I found you." That alone made everything worth it. The house was small, tucked into the edge of a sleepy mountain town, the kind of place where the trees feel taller and time feels slower. I sat in my car for almost 20 minutes before I walked up to the door. My fingers hovered over the doorbell, shaking. I wasn't afraid of her anymore. I was afraid of what I might still feel. She opened the door before I even rang. Just like that, as if she had sensed me coming. And when our eyes met, I didn't see the woman who left me. I saw a ghost of the girl I once loved. Thinner, paler, but not broken. Just weathered. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I replied. Familiar words, unfamiliar weight. She invited me in. No theatrics, no long speeches. We sat across from each other at the kitchen table, the same way we had for years before everything collapsed. At first, we didn't speak. There was just this quiet, heavy stillness, like both of us were trying to recognize what time had done to the other. "I didn't ask you here to apologize," she finally said. "I know it wouldn't be enough. I asked you here because I didn't want to die pretending I hadn't wrecked something beautiful." I nodded, slowly. "You did," I said. "But something else came from it." We talked for over an hour. She didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. There was pain between us, yes, but no more blame. And in the final minutes, she said something I never thought I'd hear. "You were always the better one, Lowell. I just couldn't see it until everything else was gone." Before I left, she asked if I'd come back. Not to fix things, just to say goodbye when the time came. I told her I would. Not for her, but for Mira. The drive home felt different, like something had been removed from my chest that I'd carried too long. I rolled the windows down, let the mountain air fill the silence. For the first time in 15 years, it didn't feel empty. Felt peaceful. Mira texted me that night. "Was it awful?" I replied, "No, it was honest. And that's enough." That weekend, she came over for dinner. We cooked together, nothing fancy, just spaghetti and garlic bread. She showed me her newest sketchbook. I told her stories about my childhood. And when she left, she hugged me for the first time. Tight, like she meant it. I still don't know what kind of father I'll be at this point in her life. But I know I'll show up. Every time. Dana passed 3 months later. Mira and I attended the memorial together. She held my hand. And afterward, as we watched the wind move through the trees, she whispered, "I'm glad she told me who you were. I would have missed you otherwise." I didn't say anything. I just held her hand tighter. Sometimes the past doesn't get rewritten. Sometimes it just makes way for something new. And sometimes, healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means finally being able to breathe without the weight of the lie on your chest. So yes, this story started with betrayal. But it didn't end there. It ended with something real. Thank you for watching Reddit Confessions. If you've ever experienced a long-lost reconnection or a second chance that changed your life, tell us about it in the comments. Or better yet, what's a little-known moment in history that reminds you that hope can survive even after everything goes wrong? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the story with someone who might need it. We'll see you in the next confession.